The Detroit Lions have a huge game tonight against the Green Bay Packers, and in my opinion, a must-win and probably one of the biggest games of the season because of what is at stake with a win tomorrow. And if the Detroit Lions were to lose, that would complicate things, but not just be the end-all, be-all. But a win tomorrow goes a long way. We've talked about the Detroit Lions and their first seed potential. We even talked about a playoff clinching scenario, which the Detroit Lions are essentially guaranteed to make the playoffs. But what about repeating as division champions? When is the earliest that could happen? Well, I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you. According to the ESPN playoff predictor, right now, the earliest the Detroit Lions could clinch the NFC North is, you guessed it, Week 16. Does that sound familiar? That was the exact same week that the Detroit Lions were able to clinch last year against the Minnesota Vikings at US Bank Stadium, a game that I was so happy to attend and would go back in a second. US Bank is an awesome place, and the prices are cheaper than Ford Field. The Lions were 10-4, facing a 7-7 Minnesota Viking team. And that team, with a win against us, would be able to potentially take us to the brink. They needed a lot of things to happen to win the division, but basically we would have had to lose out. They would have had to win out and beat us the last game of the season. But we essentially wind up, we didn't eliminate them from playoff contention. I think they were eliminated week 16 or 17 when we were playing Dallas, and we were able to eliminate them, or we just won the division. So what would we need for that to happen? I'm going to get it right one day. What would we need for it to happen? Well, obviously, we already talked about the playoff clinching scenario for the Lions is for us to get a dub against the Green Bay Packers. We would need a Minnesota Viking loss, and I think that I picked Week 16 like I think it's going to go. This game doesn't matter, but I just went on and picked everybody in the division. We need to handle business against the Packers, and then we need the upset against the Minnesota Vikings. This is Kirk Cousins coming back. You know, they talking trash, Minnesota Vikings fans, per usual, about he's garbage, blah, blah, blah. I think he comes back, and I think he's going to play better than he did in Week 13. But that's what we would need to happen. So a win, a Minnesota loss, and like I said, this doesn't matter. But we are going to need the Bears' help in Week 15. We are going to have to take care of our business against our third home game in a row, right? Thanksgiving, tonight, and then next week. We're going to have to beat the Buffalo Bills. Then we're going to need this could go either way, but I think this is the more realistic of the two games when we go to Week 16 that you guys will see with the Green Bay Packers. I think this is the more realistic that they lose. So we're going to need a Seattle Seahawks win. And then we're going to need the Bears' help and basically upset the Minnesota Vikings. The Bears are not eliminated from playoff contention heading into Week 14. So we're going to need that. Now, here's where the clinching would happen. Sounds funny just saying. We are going to need, at this point, if the Green Bay Packers were to lose against the Seattle Seahawks, this week really wouldn't matter. So I'll go ahead and give them a win. We're going to have to, after needing the Bears' help in Week 15, we're going to have to win in Week 16. And here's the key, is those 3 wins for the Detroit Lions, and we need 2 Minnesota losses. That would ensure that we get, and what that would mean is heading into Week 16 with, what are we talking about? After Week 16, heading into Week 17. Now the Minnesota Vikings, no matter what happens, the last game of the season between the Detroit Lions and Minnesota Vikings, we would win the division. Now, even if we gave Minnesota a loss or a win right there, see, now we could still win the division, because the worst we could be would be 14-1. So either way it goes, the earliest that the Detroit Lions could clinch the division would be in Week 16. And in order to do that, we need at least we have to win all 3 games. We need the Minnesota Vikings to drop at least 2. At least 2. So they would have to lose. I could realistically see them, honestly, losing against the Falcons and the Seahawks. So we need 2 losses from Minnesota. We need to win all 3 of our games. And if we beat the Packers, then we're good to go. Now, I went over this. I'm not going to get distracted. You can see here that the Green Bay Packers, at that, even if they won this game, then they would be out, it would be out of reach. So I'm not going to get distracted. Usually, I'm not kidding, my 4th time recording this video. And then I always get distracted, and I'm like, well, what if this happens? And then I go back, and then I get all messed up and have to start it over. So I'm not going to go back and try to figure out, well, what if the Minnesota Vikings do this or do that? From the way that I did it, if the Lions, like I said, if they were to lose one of those games, it would still be tight heading into week 16. But week 16 would finish out the clinching for the division title. So week 16 is the earliest that the Detroit Lions could clinch. They would need at least 2 losses from the Minnesota Vikings, and they would need 3 wins. If we win all 3, then we clinch. But there's probably other scenarios as well that have to do with week 16. You know what I mean? If we lose one and we don't win all 3, then Minnesota has to lose the next 3. So either way it go, week 16, from my calculations, is the earliest, which, I mean, you're talking about destiny, right? So we win our first NFC North title in week 16 against the Minnesota Vikings. We go all the way to the NFC Championship game. What if we were to repeat that this year? We win in week 16. We guaranteed seeds 1 through 4, and we lock it down in the same week that we did last year. That would be crazy. But I think the Detroit Lions, I would hate to see it come down to the end of the season. But the NFC is so crazy. It's so crazy because with the right combination of things happening, it literally could come down to the last game of the season in so many facets, right? Even for the Detroit Lions, depending on what happens with the Minnesota Vikings, you could be playing for the division. You could be playing for the first seed. You could be playing for a lot of things with that last game if we're not able to clinch the division before. Now, I'm going to keep it a buck. If I go through here and the Minnesota Vikings are ready to falter, I could see, honestly, this is how I think their schedule is going to go. Because if we beat the Green Bay Packers tonight, then we essentially knock them out from, they'll still be in it, but we'll essentially, because we'll have the tiebreaker over them, we'll have swept them. So I don't think they'll be an issue at that point. But here's how I think it's going to go. I think the Falcons are going to beat the Minnesota Vikings in week 14. I think the Bears have potential to beat them, but I could see that game going either way. I think the Seattle Seahawks, they're going to be playing in Seattle. I could see that happening as well. And don't forget, the Minnesota Vikings are good to drop at least 2 in a row. Week 17, the Green Bay Packers, they could win this game. That would help us a ton, and then we win. So it's quite possible. I mean, it's not all that realistic that they drop 5 in a row, but I'll put it like this. If they lost 5 in a row, that puts them at 10-7. And 10-7 might not be enough for you to make the playoffs. It might not, because right now, the 7th seed is the Washington Commanders, and they're 8-5. So the best they could be would be 12-5. So if the Minnesota Vikings are not out of the woods, that one game, that's why tonight's game is so big. If we get up to 12 wins, it will be huge for us. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. We've talked about everything but the division. And from my calculations, how I did it, the earliest the Detroit Lions could clinch is week 16. But let me know if you came up with something different. This is exciting times, man. What a time it is to be a Detroit Lion fans, man. It's absolutely awesome. Don't forget, I will be at the game tonight, so there is no watch party, but there will be a post-game show directly after. As soon as I get home, the stream might be up. But of course, when we'll converse in the chat until I get home, whatever time I'm home. Probably won't take any phone calls because it'll be so late, but we'll go through the usual motions of bringing in the press conference and such. Tonight is a big game. Lions need to get this win, and I think that they do. This channel is made possible by viewers, subscribers, and members just like you. You could be anywhere else on YouTube, but you choose to rock with me. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions. And I want to thank the 3 people that have made Ridge Wallet purchases. I appreciate you. I can't see who you are, but I can see when a purchase was made. It'll tell me how many affiliate sales I had that day. I appreciate all 3 of you. Thank you so much. And as always, go Lions. If you're at the game tonight, say hello. I'm not sure the beard will be blue, but if you see me, say hi.